Birmingham Science City is one of 6 science cities in England, and Bristol is also a science city, so I don't know if you're going to say anything about that or not. In Birmingham, what Birmingham Science City is, it is first and foremost, it's a partnership. So the first part of my answer to the question, what is a smart city? It's a city that works in partnership. Birmingham Science City is a partnership between the public sector, the private sector, and the research base. So we have 3 integrated strands of activity, and we're probably quite unusual in the fact that we do work in a very balanced way between these 3 sectors. And what we do is we try and use science and technology to improve prosperity and quality of life, which is a very big agenda. Unlike the Brainport example that Robert told us about, we don't actually have laboratories. We do everything through getting our partners to work together and to deliver activities. And we work in a number of challenge areas which include digital and low carbon, so very pertinent to the discussions today. And our role is really to catalyse partnership activities between these 3 sectors. So I think a smart city, as I say, is a sharing and a partnership city. That's essential for me. It's a thinking and a learning city. And reflecting back to some of the comments that John made earlier, it's definitely about making the best of the assets it has, and particularly the knowledge assets it has. Reflecting slightly back to the question I asked, those assets needn't just be in the city but around the city, and in fact Birmingham Science City is a regional partnership, not just a partnership within Birmingham. So hopefully in Birmingham Science City we're helping to make Birmingham a smarter city. We're responding, one of the other things we were asked to talk about was how we're responding to the EU digital agenda. I think we're responding to that and we're aligned with that because we're encouraging research and development. We're encouraging the application of research and development. We encourage the public to engage with science and technology through a number of activities and partners. And we are also applying technology and including ICT, to real life problems, to societal problems. And just a couple of examples I'll give you there that partners are working on or have been working on. We've had a project with University Hospital Birmingham, which is a huge new super hospital working with Coventry University. The problem was you're moving 2 very large hospitals into one super hospital. How on earth do you get that to run smoothly? So there has been library. The problem is, how do you engage citizens in helping to design a 21st century library? And so they've created a virtual library in Second Life, which is actually part of the consultation process about how we develop and build and use a new library. And we have a lot of new projects. They're helping to address new project ideas, helping to address the big society idea that we're very keen on now in this country, how we get citizens to use open data, etc. So we have a lot of different aspects of using digital technologies and information to help to improve, as I say, prosperity and quality of life.
So I'm Steve Hilton. I head up Connecting Bristol, which is the digital partnership that Bristol City Council established about 5 years ago. We are a science city, I'm very proud of that. We're also very proud of being a green capital and a digital city. I guess in terms of smart cities, I think there are 2 things I'd like to say by way of introduction. I think clearly it's vitally important for cities to have a strong vision, but it's really also important for cities to have strong leadership around this. So for Bristol, the challenge is to put our own house in order to sort of facilitate the move towards being a smart city. So we are, at a time when finances are difficult, taking a brave step of bringing together the digital team within the council, the economic development team, and the sustainable cities team that's responsible for the green agenda in Bristol, to create one new division within the council that will have a director, so the director of Green Digital Futures. And I think there's something in there about a city council actually starting to invest in the future. Having a chief officer or a strategic director who's responsible for the future is possibly a first. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, by way of introduction, was creativity and openness. My fear with smart cities is that we can all say that the digital agenda and the green agenda are really important to us. And the only thing that stops all smart cities being the same, in the same way that all shopping centres might be the same, is that local sense of creativity, ownership, quirkiness, unorthodoxness, subversion. I like those sorts of words. And I think the differentiation is around using your own assets and your own people and your own data and your own creative companies locally to add some value to your city that makes it different from somewhere else. And so there's a very simple example around that. We decided to open up city-held data about 6 months ago. But rather than just creating a portal where people could go and access data, we also run an innovation competition and worked with the local digital media cluster. 45 businesses submitted proposals for business ideas that they would put into practice using city-held data. We commissioned 3. I'll just very briefly say what those are. One relates to the use of city data to create an application that provides accessible routes around Bristol. It's a company run by a guy in a wheelchair called Ian. And his vision is that when you search Google for Google Maps for your routes, the default something locally like shop at a farmer's market or cycle to work. And the third company is making use of the spending data that all authorities in England are going to have to publish in the next few months. But the real success of that process for me was that we had 45 businesses bidding into a competition to use city-held data to build new applications that would have some interest and some value for citizens. And that's the sort of win-win that I'm interested in around smart cities, really.
I'm Patrick Wilcox from Birmingham City Council. I head up this, I won't give you my long title, but I head up what effectively could be called the External Affairs and European Funding Division, which is again a very long title, but a bit shorter than my real title. I'd like to just say, obviously you're here in Birmingham, and actually this booklet actually is very good on how we're responding in Birmingham and the wider West Midlands, how we're responding I'm sure you'll find that in the next day and a half. What is a smart city? Now, just had sort of about an hour to think about this, and I must admit I was equally a little concerned about the Siemens model. Some of the graphics reminded me of architects' drawings where, and now visualizations where effectively everyone's happy and it's always sunny, and people are walking along next to a 6-lane highway. It looks brilliant, but it also looks a little troubling. I think a smart city is a city with smart citizens. What is a smart citizen? I'm not entirely sure, but I think in Birmingham we have a diverse bunch of smart citizens. We held an event last year on a digital district that we're trying to set up, and one of the speakers from Barcelona happened to mention that Birmingham was at the centre of the social media world, and that was something that I had no idea. respect as a local market in an area called Sturchley, which is being heavily promoted via tweets and YouTube, to perhaps something slightly larger areas of activity. I think a smart city is a city that uses new technology to engage with its citizens, but also to support co-decision making. Your ideas on this, and I think we have made some small steps in that direction in Birmingham. I think there's a lot more we could do. I think it's a city that encourages, I've called digi-entrepreneurs. We're all facing, many cities, their economic backgrounds are changing dramatically. We lost, we normally have a script that says we lost 200,000 jobs in manufacturing in the 1980s. Maybe in 10 years' time we'll be saying something else about public sector jobs. But we in Birmingham have been climbing the hill, as with Manchester, as with other major industrial cities, about replacing manufacturing jobs, and it's been going on. We've had some successes, but we've still got a lot more to do. And so we really need to grow our digital entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs, and I think there's really a well of talent out there in many of our cities. It's a smart city is a city that talks to each other, maybe digitally, but not only digitally. It has the partnership. So we have the Science City Partnership, where the City Council is strongly involved with Science City and strongly supportive of it. We have Digital Birmingham, which is a partnership across sectors promoting digitisation of the city. So I think cities need to talk to, and that in effect is what cities are about, and why cities are often the best places to actually try new ideas, to pilot new ideas, because we are in the same space. And I think what the colleague from Bristol said, a smart city is a city with a city administration that's open to new ideas, and has leadership. And we heard from Councillor Tilsley this morning. He is in charge of effectively all new ideas that come out of the city. He's in charge of the digital agenda, he's in charge of the climate change agenda, and he's in charge of business transformation. And the joining up of those is what he's trying to do, and what we as officers are also trying to do. So I think leadership, as often in many different examples, leadership in cities is key. And there are examples elsewhere, Manchester, Richard Lee's, other examples of visionary leadership, consistent, coherent, and strategic leadership, which I think is very important for a smart city.
I'm interested in the link that's come out to this low carbon dimension. It's not, it doesn't seem to be always present. It wasn't, for example, a big feature of the intelligent communities idea, but there's obviously a particular twist here and a particular link, especially as far as the European Commission is concerned. And both you just now, Patrick, and Steve brought out this dimension about reducing one's footprint or uncoupling economic growth from growth in energy use and carbon footprint. So is that central to the Siemens vision?
Well, Siemens is obviously a science and technology company. So in that sense, we try to push the boundary with regards to R&D work. Of course, in today's climate in Europe, it might not be that every city can afford expensive stuff. But I think if you look beyond the current climate, do you think that Europe will be in this state in the next 5 years? Is it a passing phase? I mean, if you want to be optimistic, probably not. During winter, you huddle around, you try to survive, you make do with what you can. But as always, you try to look ahead to see what's possible beyond 5, beyond 10 years. In Siemens, I mean, I don't really want to talk about Siemens itself, but I want to talk about projects around the world. There are fancy projects, let's say in Middle East, we are talking about Mazda, a zero carbon city. And we all know Abu Dhabi has tons of money to burn. I wouldn't criticize that. I mean, whether it's scalable, practical or not, I wouldn't criticize that. But if somebody has some resources, they want to push the boundary a little bit for the interest of knowledge generation, information generation, and later on, that this knowledge that's generated be able to replicate it, and you and I can enjoy it, I would say why not? So for now, if it means that we have to save money, go for a low-cost option, so be it, because it's the only practical solution. But don't lose sight of what goes beyond, because this is winter. Well, what happens when spring comes? Are you prepared to run? Are you
the digital inclusion dimension, which has come out quite strongly in the contributions. We can invest in all this smart stuff, but that dimension of including and getting the feed in, part of a smart city is getting that connection with the community and empowering the community through these technologies. How does that fit into the agenda that you have?
To me, digital inclusion is about trying to draw the best of the people that you have so that no talent goes to waste. If you look at a city, assuming you don't have resources, humans or people are the only people you have, or they can come from outside. So the question is, how do you make best of every single human resource or human capital that you have? I also want to add a second point about welcoming other talents. 25 years ago, the economists are all expecting Japan to be the #1 economy in the world, overtaking US. Obviously, this has not happened. US is still the #1 economy, and Japan has more or less tapered off. Now, people are saying that China will take over the world. I think from the many slides I've seen about the deindustrialization of Europe, I can sense a little bit of pessimism whether this would happen. Now, I don't think this would happen, because there's something in Europe, in America, that the Chinese don't have, and unless they have that, then they can't be #1. And this is creativity and talents. US is great, not just because it has a bunch of talented people, but it was very welcoming of other people, immigrants and so on. And you always hear people talking about US as a land of opportunity. How do you make Europe the land of opportunity? How do you attract talents, draw your own talents, so that you are able to compete? And unless China is able to do the same, be able to attract talents, be able to retain talents, then I don't see how they could be the #1. And the even bigger economy. It's just not as simple as that. The element of creativity that's in every one of us, this element of talent management, is very, very important for cities.
John, after those contributions and those visions of smart cities that you've heard, have you got any reaction from the commissioners?
I'll be brief. I mean, from my point of view, what strikes me listening to the issue is, if I was to define a smart city, I would probably start from the Delphic Oracle's last known piece of wisdom, which was know thyself. Now, I think this touches on certainly what Stephen was saying and others. The notion of stepping back and trying to figure out what's the issue. What do we actually need to do? What are the big issues here? The cuts, carbon. Rather than going very, very low in terms of, as I say, granularity, like what are the challenges? What world are we actually living in, and what do we need to do? I think that's part of what you seem to be doing in Bristol, is stepping back and sort of saying, well, what's going on? Where do we fit? How is this actually going to work in the real world? I would only add to that there are lots of cities here, and I mean, apologies, I'm Irish, but the difference. The Barrow, the Nore and the Suir are three rivers that drain the southern counties of Ireland. And the centre of Ireland is getting increasingly wet, if that's possible. But anyway, it's probably going to sink. But anyway, the towns in the centre of Ireland, they're Tipperary, Carlow, Laois, various places. But I happen to know the town clerk in Clonmel. His name is Billy Doyle. No, he's no relation. But anyway, Billy got in ahead of everybody else and improved the flood defences in Clonmel. And quicker than the others. He's the town clerk. But I think there is maybe an issue here, particularly when you're looking at the hamstringing of city authorities by inappropriate legislation. It may be that you have to compete with certain things. Maybe you also can think of a smart city as being one where you might be able to collaborate to get certain stupid things out of the way. I mean,
from your reactions to what we've heard. What are you doing in your cities that contribute to this concept of a smart city? I mean, one thing that strikes me, if you'll allow me, Bruno, IBM's little strapline here is smarter cities, and it does strike me that that's really what it's all about. We're incrementally, through integrating this with that, or introducing combined heat and power here and waste to energy there, in different ways, in different sectors, joining things together and gradually making our cities smarter. And so you know, it's not something that suddenly you're a smart city. It's something we're all working towards, and I'm sure you're all working towards that. And I think it would be really interesting to get some flavour of some of the things that you're doing in this room that you think are contributing to your city becoming smarter.
I come from the city of Linköping. I work as a ICT strategy officer, so actually I'm not talking about things that I know anything about. Just kidding. What we started up for a couple of years ago, we started to build remote heating systems and quite a high-tech waste energy plant, so to speak. So in our city we have many houses that has a remote heating system, and it's quite good. I have it myself. I can be in the shower having warm water all day long, for example. The problem is that from the 1st of May till the last of September. You pay around 150 euros maybe. That's including all the heating of your house. What we also is using the system for is to cool down computer halls. You say so? Computer data centers. Yeah. So it's the same system. Just switch a little button, and then it's cooling instead of heating. So the waste from the system is used as energy for the other one, so to speak. So first we start to produce energy, and then we have the waste, which is remote heating. And then we have the remote heating that to cool down, and we use that to give you a nice cool. And then we use the system also for cooling. And that's quite a good system. Works very well. And it has also built an industry around the city of Linköping, which we're trying to have a badge, so to speak, to be environmental. Yeah, yeah, green city. Yeah, so that's all. Yeah.
Anyone else want to contribute an example of what they're doing in their city around?
I'm Diane Downey from Sunderland City Council. Within Sunderland, we're looking at a large number of initiatives around sort of smart city, recognising it's not any one single thing that's going to make the difference. So we've got, we're fortunate enough to have Nissan actually located in Sunderland, and quite recently Nissan has been awarded the electrical vehicle contract, so that is helping us to set up a low carbon industry based around electrical vehicles. Probably what a lot of people don't know is Nissan also do create some of their own electricity, and on their plant they have a number of wind turbines which is actually helping to generate some of the electricity they use in their plant. Linked with that, we have a very large digital inclusion programme within Sunderland, where we recognise that one of the key things for regeneration of the area is about making sure people have the right skills to actually do the jobs of the 21st century. So we put a huge amount of time and effort into making sure that we have the right skills, but it's more about the engagement, about getting those people that are both disengaged, actually re-engaging them and using digital technology in very, very different ways. We're also looking at the importance of the software industry, and that's building on some of the work that we've had from the university, and it's working sort of regionally.
From the contributions we're having, that it doesn't, that actually you're looking at the concentration of infrastructure, yeah, but also talent and entrepreneurs and the concentration of people and services that actually make that low carbon agenda possible in line with that as well. Patrick, I know people have been having a pot at you on this. You know, it's actually angry geeks that are driven on by inactive.
Well, just to say that, and I know Dave, and
You don't really listen.
no, I'm sure I can find out. I'll just do a search. No, I think I don't agree with Dave there. I think social entrepreneurs, social digital entrepreneurs, it could have been far better. And actually the person who led that, or was one of the main leaders of that, has since left Birmingham, I think partly because of the frustrations sometimes of actually the engagement and the support that we try to give but don't always give it in the right way. So I you know, you might get short-term gains from pissing off the geeks, but really you need to find a way of working with them, and that's not easy. It's certainly not easy to find a way which bureaucracies can work with free-thinking entrepreneurs, but there must be some way, because we can both learn from working together.
Okay. Tam, have you got any reactions?
Yes, a number of reactions, and just picking up Dave's point again, and I should say that Dave chairs our digital working group, so we work very well with him. But actually what his point made me think was that rather than having the geeks annoyed, we should be challenging them, and it could have the same reaction.
Yeah,
so we could be working together to, and I think this is a theme that's come out from throughout this morning, and a number of the interventions from the floor, is that we need to be identifying our local challenges, our local opportunities. The Sunderland example was more about opportunities than challenges, and then all getting behind it with our talent and our knowledge to address them. So I think if we can kind of galvanise that annoyance energy into a more addressing an opportunity or a challenge energy, I think that's where we. And your point about the digital world, the world of broadband stopping us thinking local, I don't think it will stop us thinking local, because I think a very clear message that's come out this morning is there's a lot of similarities between our cities, but we all have our own specific set of challenges and opportunities to address.
What's fascinating is so much of what's coming out from both of you just now are echoes of what we heard about intelligent communities.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
indeed.
A final word, I think, to Steve from Bristol. You've got
Just a couple of things. I liked the plea for dumber cities, and of course dumb has two meanings. Dumb also means maybe not saying anything, and there's a sort of lesson in there, I think, around maybe strong leadership, not necessarily being about the city or the city council telling people the answer, but about facilitating the sort of groups and networks that we've talked about. We know that social media is very disruptive. And I think the link with the green agenda is that there are eco-activists, the equivalents of geeks, who are also very disruptive in their own way. You know, they are interested in alternative models of food production, they're interested in peak oil, they're interested in really quite fundamental things that disrupt the way that we do business or run cities. And the exciting bit is around authorities being able to feel comfortable in facilitating the sort of conversations between those sort of communities that have ideas. Well, the final thing I would say, because some of the points that people have made from the audience are also quite big things. If you're talking about changing the way that data centres are cooled or power supply, or there's a sense in which that isn't going to necessarily arise from very small local activities. So there's a sense at which a smart city knows when it needs to speak and when it needs to be quiet. And I think that's probably the lesson that I've learned from the discussion.